I really don't know why I came here, because after hearing Mariano, doesn't make any sense. Long way, he's here, he knows a lot, perhaps more than me, or perhaps we can share information. And let me clarify 2 or 3 things of what he said, or be more, give more information. Of course, tell Enrique to stay with me also, please. Okay? One of the things he also read a lot was the Bible. He was an expert in Bible. You have to see his Bible all written with kind of comments and colors on the time where all those markers didn't exist. Well, he had markers, all written down with information. And the main goal of his young life, at the beginning of his young life, was to know what God wanted him to do in his life in the earth. That's the reason why he was always trying to read, to get involved with people, important people in the world, in Europe, in the United States, in Argentina. Another information that perhaps Mariano doesn't know is that 262 persons were to the hospital to give blood for him. 262 workers for the owner and the president of the company. Now let's go to my presentation. Okay. Well, forgive my English, first of all. Perhaps I know some English, but normally it's easier for me to speak in Spanish, but forgive my English. Thanks for the invitation, and thanks for allowing me to bring with Enrique Shaw as a candidate for the business case that I think is a candidate, a very important candidate. I am a normal person. I'm not a priest. I work like everyone, and I joined this thing because I decided to know more about Enrique Shaw, and then I discovered this incredible person. That's the reason why I started in 2001, involved in this investigation at that time, fighting against the mills like Don Quixote, because it was almost impossible to understand a possible saint working in a company as a businessman. Impossible, forget it. Doesn't make any sense. I'm sure he must have done something wrong, or, well. And one very important thing before I start, it's very difficult for me to separate the businessman or the business case with the process, because I really start working for the process, and you see how I came to this. Okay, well, it's very nice for me, look at his smile, to talk about this. I'm sure a saint in the future, for sure, because I'm convinced. When organizing the 2002 World Congress, UNIAPAC in Buenos Aires, José María Simone, the president of UNIAPAC, asked me to be the postulator or the lawyer of the process. I didn't know anything about law, I didn't know anything about process, I didn't know anything about sainthood. So as a condition, I said to him and to whoever asked me, I want to review all his balance sheets, all the information in the companies he worked for, and see if he was or not a good businessman. If he was not a good businessman, I don't like it. I don't want to be involved. I want to look for a person who was a very good businessman and at the same time work in the human side of the companies, okay? If that's possible to see, I'm here. But if not, forget it. After 1 year, remember that I work, I have to pay the bills in my house, I have to pay schools, and I had sons and all the things, you know, because you suffer the same situation. After 1 year search, I discovered that this was an incredible case. And as the legal aspects of the process is a mandatory thing to be convinced, and all the lawyers are not always convinced of if his customer, his client is a good person, because sometimes when they receive a good money, they don't care and they defend a killer or whatever. I was convinced at that time that he was a very good person, a very good businessman, and he was going to be a saint. Well, I don't want to talk much about this because, well, Mariano and, well, you know, the important thing is that he's the youngest naval officer in the army in Argentina. He was 2 years younger than all the ones that graduated in the story, complete story of Argentina. And very important, his 5 last years of life, he had cancer. He never told the people in general, so only his family, close family, knew, and he never had medicines or things to calm the pain. He suffered a lot. He offered everything for the poor people or the people who need things. Okay? And all that is written in those notes that he had every day. And therefore, we are all today able to see the internal side of this incredible person. He was a businessman of a different vision. As I said, I discovered he was a very good businessman. He was a person that wanted to have investors happy, and at the same time, he wanted to have his collaborators or workers happy. The match of these two things are almost impossible, and today perhaps more, because all today is profits, profits, profits. Kill, profits. Well, he was exactly the different, putting both things together and pushing the boat in order to have profits and everyone happy. I think that he was based for his the way of working, for his vision, of different vision was, of course, as I said, the profitability for the investors. He was always looking for advanced technology to modernize the companies, a solid humanistic vision in relation between the company and all its partners. This also came from the amount of quantities of books that he read. And he built an organization where persons were extremely motivated with the company and with him. No one wanted to leave the company. They were very happy to work with Enrique. And Enrique was very happy to work with him. As this is a business case, I started to look at my files, and I reviewed the results of several balance sheets I had. He had a lot of companies in his portfolio, family portfolio, lot of companies. He worked in several, but one of them was Rigolo, and the other one was a company called Ferrum. Rigolo was the most important glassware company in Argentina and in South America. They had up to 3,500 workers in a certain moment. In the process of the search for the information for the canonization process, I was able to obtain information about the business process. Lots of persons that worked with him were able to tell me how well he was, okay? How was this person telling about the management style of Enrique in order to obtain profits, cost reductions, and whatever you want to hear. So I came with some balance sheets. In all of them, except one, he had always profits, always making money. Here below is the rate of exchange. I suppose you know that in Argentina, we normally have problems to see what kind of money is this. Well, at that time, there was not many problems. There were not many problems. But the only balance sheet I had, and I'm looking for more in order to support more the business case, the only company that had a loss was in this year, Rigolot, 1963. He was dead at that time, but because of a fire that destroyed several parts of the company, and they had 3 months without sales. But doesn't make any difference. I think he was quite profitable. I'm going to go through this very fast. The scenario where he was working was extremely negative. He started working in 1944 as a businessman, and since 1930-something, Argentina started to come down. So we request, as you can see in this first paragraph, to a company that has a lot of information for the last 200 years of economic variables and figures in Argentina, to make some kind of preparation for this case. Well, they couldn't make it, but we're going to have for the future. So I'm going to try to prove with this information more than what I have today, because I'm convinced about the effectiveness of the company and how well he managed the company based on the scenario that he was working on. Well, nationalization of the companies, state-owned companies, price control, subsidiaries, well, all the things that, well, I don't want to mention many. Corruption, very difficult to work in a company like his company, a big company, and don't go with the corruption practices. He was against, and never happened anything strange there. The problem that the people had in the country, of course, affected the situation in Rigolot and Fernan. But well, he was always coming around, walking, talking to the people, like Mariano said, trying to see what was the problem for the people, how to solve them. Well, nothing happened because he was always protecting the people and the profits. Just to give you an example, when the Perón government was fired because of the revolution in 1955, one of the first decisions of the military president was to cancel all unions. No unions anymore, they said. Enrique said, no, I want unions in the company. And he kept the unions in the company as something normal. Of course, this was very well received from the union leaders. The effect of the Argentina situation, political and economic, was continuing. In 1958, we have a rare, strange democracy because Perón was not allowed to be candidate. So that's what kind of democracy is that? Well, continue the negative effects in the economy, employment situation was also affected. That is where what mentioned Mariano came. He prepared 2 pages to convince the board and the shareholders about the importance of having this equilibrium between profitability and human side. Well, I'm going to mention this in a few seconds. But this is an example I wanted just to point out how he managed in a big crisis. Because normally, when you don't have a crisis, everything is okay. Well, you are a genius. But the important thing is to manage the company as a genius when you have a big crisis. In 1959, 4 big companies, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, the wine companies, and the beer company, the main beer company, all were affected by the economy and couldn't pay the bills. Rigolo was selling bottles. Well, imagine the situation. Well, then came this order, fire people, reduce costs, collapse of activity. They wanted, the Corning Glass, they want cost reduction in investment, fire unnecessary personnel. They also said turn off the ovens. That's something very difficult in an industry like crystal. But Enrique Schott told them, look, we have several years where we were able to make money, so let's put it in these two things, the message. First, if we fire people, our industry requires very specialized people. So it's not, just fire and no. If you fire this guy or these guys, you'll have problems tomorrow because this will finish. He was very, very professional. He studied in Harvard, so he had something like a balanced scorecard available with a lot of information by sector, by cost center, but whatever. So he said, wait a minute, don't do it. Because of this thing that if you fire, we are going to lose very important persons, and also because we don't need to. Let's do it something at least 2-3 months. Let's put in place an action plan in order to reduce this. Let's put all the people to collect the money that is unpaid. Well, he went to United States to convince them, and he did. And he obtained the approval of. Well, this is the plan that you can see. The pity that we don't have much time, but in the USA, after difficult days of negotiation, he was able to obtain the approval. Remember that he was ill, very ill. And this is very, very fast. This is the human side or the spiritual side of Enrique. At that time, with all that crisis, he wrote this in the note to the shareholders. Man's work is wanted by God and sanctified by Christ's reality. Unemployment affects the man's dignity and therefore is more a moral evil rather than an economic harm. Therefore, dismissal should never be the first step to take. On the other hand, only applies if the livelihood of the company is in danger or is affected the general interest and there is no other alternative. Well, once again, I don't want to read much more, but he was clear in terms of if we don't need to, and if we are going to fire or reduce things that we're going to do tomorrow, misters, wait, don't do it. Well, once again, sorry, if you want, you can request the presentation. Of course, as said before, as said in the bottom, the board, once the thing became normal, the board congratulated Enrique. There was no impact, and the company was again in the normal condition, normal situation. Well, this is the plan, collect all the past due, sell only with down payment, don't buy materials. And he was always at the front of the boat, fighting for this. Well, this is another thing that could be useful to explain. When the thing was really terrible, and there was no way to manage the situation as the other side, as the case, he had to fire people. He used to have 2 or 3 situations during his life. Today we call it outsourcing. But 60 years ago, outsourcing didn't exist. Exists something like outsourcing, and he had to fire lots of persons in order to have better cost and cancel areas that were not necessary anymore. Well, here you can see how he did that. And finally, the persons that were fired went in front, put the company with the help of Enrique Shaw, with the support to banks. Well, they were able to start with new companies and provide the necessary materials instead of internally from the company, from outside. And I'm going to finish in a few minutes, so let me read this letter. This is a letter from a person who is called Amory Houghton. This was the person facing always with Enrique, when Enrique was in Rigolo, and Amory Houghton was in Corning Glass. Later on, Amory Houghton was the CEO of the company, of Corning. When we discovered that he was alive in 2001, we told him, please can you please send the letter to us about what you remember about Enrique Shaw? I don't know if you can read that. If not, I can tell you very fast. Dear Juan, this was a letter to the person that was before me. Dear Juan, thank you so much for your letter, which I recently received. I do remember Henry Shaw. He was an absolutely outstanding person. One of the great men I knew, effective, intelligent, driving great ambition to do the right thing, yet at the same time was a very practical businessman. I have no idea what you want me to do other than to expose his cause. He was one of the most outstanding young business people I ever knew. So if you want a proof of he was a good businessman, well, here you have one. His opposite person in that company said this. And just finishing, when he started working, he thought that he had to change the mind of the entrepreneurs or the businessmen. And he said, it's a social need for the coming of the kingdom of God in the business world. But how can we do it when businessmen do not have the kingdom of God within themselves? Well, this is something that he said, I have to change it. I think he didn't have time, but he was able to manage quite a bit. Well, this is a photograph when I went to Rome and gave the Pope all the documents. And as said by Francisco, please pray for the cause because I think we have a future saint in the future. Thank you very much.